Good evening, everyone. I am Simran Bhaskar, the founder of Project Blue Ribbon.
Good evening, everyone. I am Vrinda Singh, co-founder of Project Blue Ribbon.
Project Blue Ribbon is a youth led organization that aims to raise awareness on child maltreatment. We are a team of 25 plus members who all range between the age group of 18 to 22 years. This project aims to support child rights and raise awareness against child abuse, and we want to construct a society where children can enjoy their childhood without any kind of abuse in the name of faith, religion, or culture.
So, child maltreatment is a global issue which needs to be addressed immediately. Many studies have shown that child abuse crosses all boundaries of region, religion, class, ethics, heritage, etc. It leaves a lifelong impact on children, but not only affecting their physical health, but also their mental and emotional health. Approximately every 1 in 5 women and 1 in every 13 men suffer from child abuse. Hence, it's really important to prevent it from happening by all means. And this is the main aim and focus of our organization. We need to make people aware about the different types of abuses, how to prevent such abuses from happening, and most importantly, how to help a victim overcome that trauma.
We all have assembled here to know more about child abuse in relation to female genital mutilation. Let's first talk about what is a child maltreatment. Child maltreatment is abuse or neglect that occurs to children under the age of 18 years. To swell up with the agony of a girl child, let's some talk about female genital mutilation, which is ritual cutting or removal of some or all of the external female genital, which is still in practice in Africa, Asia, and Middle East. Today, we are all privileged to have Mrs. Hoda Ali, who is a nurse and a human rights activist. She is a survivor who has undergone female genital mutilation in Somalia at an age of 7, which resulted in a lifelong complication. In 2014, she also co-founded the Vavengers, an FGM awareness raising group that runs art events to help fund charities working in the UK that supports women and girls who all have undergone this abusive practice. Her first project was It Happens Here, the very first FGM billboard campaign in USA.
From 2015 to 2018, she was a trustee for 28 Too Many, a charity established to undertake research and provide knowledge and tools to those working to end FGM worldwide. 2018, the year that Mrs. Ali was nominated as an Amnesty International Human Rights Defender, and she appears on the suffragette spirit map. Mrs. Ali currently leads a groundbreaking project to end FGM in London Perivale Primary School with Ealing Council. The project was recently showcased in Parliament, and in recognition of its success, the John Leon charity is funding its expansion, and the project now includes 16 schools. Mrs. Ali is also a health advisor to new organization Magul, which supports survivor-led work to end FGM. Most recently, Mrs. Ali took part in the highly anticipated documentary film 100 Vaginas about the work of photographer Laura Dodsworth to help debunk notions of shame around women's bodies and sharing her powerful story on how she reclaimed her body after FGM. She draws her own experiences and professional skills to campaign to defend the rights of girls and to end FGM. And today, for the next 1 hour, we shall be all ears to let her share her journey with us. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am.
Ma'am,
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Ma'am, can you enlighten us and our viewers with what is female genital mutilation?
Can everybody hear me, by the way?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Female genital mutilation, so FGM for sure is female genital mutilation is a partial or total removal of the female genitalia for non-medical reasons. There are 4 different types that is known for now, but it could be many, many different types as well. There is type 1, which is a cut or a slit of the clitoris. They don't normally involve any stitches. Then there's type 2, which is sometimes total removal of and the clitoris, the labia, partial removal of the labia minora and the labia majora. They pull the skin together and they only stitch halfway. So as a nurse, if a patient comes to me who had type 2 in female genital mutilation, I'm able to examine them, do smear tests, because it's a lot easier. The vagina is a lot more open to do examination. But then there's type 3 FGM, which is total removal of the clitoris, the total removal of the labia minora and the labia majora. They pull the skin together and they stitch it all the way down until they leave a little hole that is no bigger than matchstick. That is type 3. Then there's type 4. Majority of the times, type 4, they don't cut anything. What they do is that part of the world, they actually believe having longer labia is more beautiful. So as soon as the baby girl is born, they start breaking down the tissues around the labia, and they will do that for years, however they wish the labia to be long. And again, they might not cutting anything, but at the same time, there's a violation of a child's private parts. There is no reason for a child to go through that for the future, how her vagina looks and what is beauty and what is not. And I just want you all imagine if there's a child is in a couple of months old and somebody is always breaking the tissue around the labia. Can you imagine the pain and the psychological that it will affect? So that is type 4. However, in the Western world now, since the law is especially changed in the UK, type 4 is anybody who's going to have a labiaplasty as well. However, labiaplasty in the Western world is a designer vagina. So people don't like how the vagina looks. They want to change it. Now, the issue I have that with is that when you are adult and what you wanted to do to your body is up to you. But my thing is that if we do have doctors and clinics who actually are doing design of vagina, what is that telling to our children? What is that telling to our youth, to our young girls? And if any of you live in the UK and you actually do a research, that in the last 3 years, we had over 50% of girls who are under the age of 17 that were sent to have a labiaplasty because of the psychological effects that they were having because somebody told them their vagina wasn't beautiful. So what you do as an adult is up to you, but when you have clinics like that, it is going to mess up children's mind, especially young girls and boys. They aspire to do that. Boys will say, you know, I want my girl to have labiaplasty because her vagina doesn't look pretty. So those are the things that for me, the problem I have with the type 4 in the Western world is okay, but it's still a child abuse.
So, ma'am, what is the most common reason to used to justify FGM?
Um, so my age, I'm 42. I'm going to be 43 in February. So I was cut in Somalia a long time ago, late 80s. And one of the reasons that they did it those times, they actually believed was part of the religion. They actually thought being a Muslim, that is what you were asked to do. However, it was people didn't know about their religion. People wasn't as religion as they are now. So they never picked up the books to read what actually was obligation as a religion person to do. And so that was one. However, regardless of what people say, no matter where you are, FGM is to control a woman's sexuality. I was cut to prove to my future husband that I was a virgin and I didn't sleep with anybody. So there are all the other excuses. However, FGM happens to control the woman's sexuality.
So, ma'am, how is FGM performed and what it is performed by some medical person?
Um, it's different in every community. It's different in every country, but even within the community as well, it's different. And I can only talk about me because these are why I talk about myself when it comes to as a survivor, not as a professional, but as a survivor, because when FGM is going to happen, so I was 7 years old, running around, going to school every day, and it was like my friends would say, Hoda, when is it your turn? When are you going to have FGM? And it was, I would come home, I would run back to my mom, and I was like, Mom, when is it my turn? When am I going to have FGM? Because that's what everybody expected in our community. So the day before, and if families, some people can afford it, they will have a big party. So for us in our house, we had a massive party. I remember I had henna done, I had my hair done, me and my little sister, because I was 7 and she was 6. And normally they don't cut girls, just one girl. They normally gather girls together. So yeah, we had that big party, but we knew, you don't know what FGM entails, but you know that there's something big is going to happen. So the day after that, after the party, I'm excited. And the way I explain it, it was like Christmas, because I woke up and I was like, what is happening? I need to, whatever is happening, happen right now. And, you know, and did I know that what was going to happen will change the rest of my life. And so yeah, so they do it in a settled way. Community who practice normally will talk to other families who want to cut their girls, and they will put them like that. Is it a medical setting? No. And right now, in the last, I say 7 years, we are seeing actually medical doctors and nurses actually performing this. But in my time, it wasn't. The only difference is that if your family have a little bit money and they can afford local anesthetic, then they can buy that and the cutter will administer that. So in our case, that was the case. We were cut at home. My parents and my dad was head of the army. My mom was a businesswoman. They were able to afford and to pay a cutter to come to the house privately to do this on us. They bought local anesthetic as well. So as a nurse now, can you imagine um, seeing somebody who's not a medical background at all? She's not a doctor, she's not a midwife, she's not a nurse. However, she still had needle and syringe that she can actually administer on her patients. And so yeah, everywhere is different, but every story over the 200 million women and girls who are survivors of FGM, that each and one of them, their story will be different. So yeah, so that was my story. That's the part that I know. A lot of my friends who went to school with me did not have local anesthetic. They were literally pulled away from their house, put them in a bushes, and then all these women who loved them were sitting on them, holding them down while the woman was cutting them away. So I always said that I was the lucky one, and regardless of what the consequences were for me after.
So, ma'am, what are some of the short-term and long-term health implications as a result of FGM?
So there is money. And one thing I'm going to say today, and I don't know how many people are joined us today, but if any of you are passionate about being medical and about medicine, if you're becoming a doctor or a nurse or midwife, it's really, really important to know that you know the ins and outs, and there's nothing to be shy about. Um, so doctors and medical professions play a big part. The short term in FGM consequences are a girl being cut and literally died within 6 hours because of a blood loss. Girls are cut around the world, regardless of where they are. But again, I can give example of where I come from. It's like in the summer, it gets to like 48 degrees heat, and these girls are being cut middle of the day. So they actually, after they being cut, they actually bled to death. That is the short-term consequences, because I want you to remember this, like every 11 seconds, a little girl is being cut somewhere around the world. I want you to imagine while we were talking right now, how many girls have been cut. Because if every 11 seconds a little girl is being cut, that doesn't mean that girl is in hospital. That doesn't mean that girl has been given the choice to actually choose if this is what she wanted. This is the children that their choice has been taken away from. And they are cut. And within 6 hours, if they don't get the support, they bleed to death. The long-term consequences is something I cannot put my hand on. And this is why I was saying, if anybody who is passionate about medicine, I would really, really love if you can research the psychological effects and the long-term consequences, because we don't have that. We never collected that data. We don't have it. However, in the last 7 years, for me alone, I have collected my own data. I was in charge of training doctors, nurses, and midwives just to understand. The long-term consequences is, I'm just going to tell you again about me, because like I said, every single woman has got different. I was cut at the age of 7. I survived that first initial of the cutting. At the age of 11, I will wake up every single night with abdominal pain. that I didn't know what it was and why I was in pain, because I didn't know what it's like to be having your period or what period pain is, because again, those are something we don't actually talk about. So at the age of 11, my dad took me to the hospital. This time we were in Somalia, the civil war was happening, so this bombing and like shooting and all of that. And dad found this hospital, which was run by Italian doctors. It was actually a private hospital, but it was for women. It was midwife side and then the children's side. And my dad took me there. And when he took me there, they said, we think that she's got a cyst, because I had ultrasound and all they could see is a shadow. They kept me there for 48 hours, and then they said, the cyst is growing. We need to operate her right now. It's only when I had my first operation, abdominal operation, that they realized I did not have a cyst. I didn't have any other problem. But what it was I had type 3 FGM when I was 7. I had my period some point after that, and my period had nowhere to come out. So I'm 11 years old being told your period has been accumulating inside. So for those of you, the young ladies who are on here today, you will understand, like, when we're together, we talk about like what age we were when we have a period or certain things. Like I sit here as a 42-year-old woman, I do not know when I first started my period. All I know is that I would end up being in a theater, being operated, and to say that it was your period, that it was accumulating inside. It took 6 years after many, many operations, and with the Italian doctors and in different countries as well. I was sent to Italy, and I had my period first time at the age of 17. The first time I literally woke up and I had naturally period, I was 17 years old. Um, and then everything kind of went normal. But then I turned 21 and everything, my body changed. And this is just for me giving you examples of the long-term consequences, because that was my long-term. And at the age of 21, I remember just one day I was just running upstairs, but I couldn't stop bleeding. And I ended up bleeding for months, to the point I was anemic, to the point that I really couldn't do anything because I'm just bleeding all the time. That goes on. So again, I had a gynecologist since I was 11 years old. So the gynecologist said to me, Hoda, you had all these operations, you had FGM, you have all the additions, we just need to keep an eye on you. But we can't help why you're bleeding so much. And I said, okay. Then I got married at the age of 26. My husband is born in London. His parents are from the Caribbean, at this beautiful little island called Barbados. They know nothing about FGM. So I was cut in Somalia to prove to my future husband that I am a virgin, that I didn't have sex with anybody else. But then here I am at the age of 22, meeting my future husband, explaining what FGM is, and he just couldn't understand. He could not understand why humans will do this to another human, especially a young girl, to prove to her sexuality. And but anyway, we got married. He understood what FGM was. I was in and out of hospital for a long time. Every couple of months, I used to end up in hospital, either too much bleeding or I had perfect infection, all to do with the additions and the operations that I had. And for me, it was actually to the point where when we got married at the age of 26, I wasn't getting pregnant. So I went to the doctors, to the gynae again, and I asked them, like, we want to have children. And that is when they said, okay, have IVF. We had IVF, miscarried for the first cycle, which is actually the day before my first scan. And so I kind of experienced of 5 weeks of what it's like to be pregnant. And then I miscarried. And when I miscarried, I had pelvic infection. I ended up being in ITU, in intensive care unit. I was sicker than all of my life. Remember, I was sick when I was 8. I was 11, I was in hospital. All of those things, I was sick at this time because my organs were basically shutting down. So I had central line where they have to feed me here. And I had and I had NG tubes. So yeah, and then at the age of 31, after all of that, I survived. I was told I can't have children. So To put it in one person, like just my journey, that was my journey. So imagine 200 million women and girls who have gone through this, their journey will be different. So we can't really put one thing in our hands to say this is the long term, this is the short term. But once a girl is being cut, there is a consequences regardless of its health or psychological. I was lucky because I didn't have the psychological effects, but I did had and all the medical effects.
You're such a strong lady. We're so happy to you are here with us. Some communities believe FGM is the best process to attain womanhood. What are your views regarding this?
Please say that again.
Some communities believe FGM is the best process to attain womanhood. What are your views regarding this?
Well, and what they really mean is to control women's sexuality. When we did the Cruel Cut 2013, I remember we were talking to, especially Layla, my best friend, was talking to, who was leading the documentary, talking to a young Somali British boys. And the first thing they said is women need to have a FGM because otherwise she's just going to sleep around. She's going to be like, this is the words that they used was, if a girl has not had FGM, she's going to be like a supermarket where people just walk in and out. Now, can you imagine as a teenager having that in your mind about women and girls? To start with, you have no respect. You haven't been taught how to respect women and girls because you would never talk about your mom like that, right? You would never talk about your sister like that. But that is the reality. The reality is they have thousands of different things to say about manhood and womanhood, but FGM is to control the girl's sexuality. FGM is always going to be controlling, and that is what every community does it.
So, ma'am, as we know, FGM is not only a violation of girls' and women's fundamental human rights, but also is a form of child abuse. Then why has it not been banned in most countries?
And if we look at the history of FGM, it was always someone else's problem. Even within the communities that practice will say to you, you know what that community does is up to them, it's their problem, it's not my problem. So a lot of these things was that it's been adopted into a culture to make it normal. Um, a lot of the communities who practice as well never think it's a child abuse. They just think that what they're doing is right for you, for that girl, for that time. And however, now people have been educated. People I know about, sorry guys, I got a hay fever. I'm about to sneeze.
It's okay,
Uh,
ma'am.
we have the last summer day today in the UK, and it's just doing my headache right now, so I'm sorry. Um, so yeah, for a lot of community, that is why it happens. And why does it took so long in the Western world to let this happen? Because in England, girls were taken from school. Girls were taking them back to somewhere else to be cut. And you know what they did? They know it was happening, but they were like, it's someone else's culture. We don't want to speak about it. And this is what we said. Um, in the Western world, something I realized, I never experienced racism myself. However, these are the things that happens. And what happens is that when abuse is happening to the Black and the brown girl, they sit back and they say, no, that is someone else's culture. We can't talk about it, even though it's a child abuse. So if FGM was happening to the white girl with the blonde hair and the blue eyes, I'm telling you right now, the law would have been changed a long, long time ago. So one of the reasons that around the world, nothing was done was it was about a cultural differences with people. So we're not going to get into that. And they didn't want to get into it because it was opening the can of a worm. You got to get ready for what you're opening. You have to have this strong, you have to have the money to fight, you have to have the education to educate these people, to tell them what they're doing to their girls is wrong. They didn't want it to do that. The rich Western world didn't want it to do that. So this is why we are in 2020 talking about FGM, especially when you look at the law in the UK. We had FGM Act since in 1985. That was amended to 2001. And that's when they make it more, oh, it's a child abuse, but at the same time, we're not going to teach in schools or educate people, adults, to look at the signs and what to look for. So that is the problem. It was always someone else's culture. It was always someone else's problem. So the people who make the decisions, the people who make the policies, the people who are in power didn't have to do it. And that is one of the reasons it happens. There's always a saying, and I don't know the name, it's an unknown person, but I want you all to please Google this. And it says, cultural acceptance does not mean accepting the unacceptable. FGM is unacceptable. My culture, that is the saying, right? So cultural acceptance does not mean accepting the unacceptable. So for me, when I saw that quote, it just gave me everything that I had in my mind, that yes, this is a child abuse. My culture, my Somali culture is beautiful. It's about the food we eat. It's about the music we listen to. It's about the clothes we wear, like I got today, right? My culture is not harmful. My culture doesn't abuse me. But guess what happened? When abuse happened and people say it's a cultural differences, then it becomes normal. So it gives the perpetrator that it's okay to do it, and it tells the community it's okay because it's a community, it's our culture. No. If my culture is harming me, if your culture is harming your children, if it's harming your family, that is not your culture. Because culture is something you recognize as a human being around the world, right? If I go to New York and somebody say, oh, where you come from? I say, I'm from Somalia. You know, if you came from India and you're in the Trinidad and like, where are you from? I'm like, from India, like my culture. That is what we do. Culture doesn't harm us. But the problem is that violence against women and girls are based on cultural differences. And that is why that it become normal to abuse girls and women. And it's about time we need to own our culture and what our culture is about and use the beauty of our culture. But the harmful side of it got to go. It got to go. Have no time for that.
And you gave us a very well perspective regarding this. So, ma'am, every 3 out of 4 girl child are at the risk of undergoing FGM every year. So, to what extent FGM affects a child mental health?
Child, well, FGM will affect every side of a child's mental body, right? Because we have every four girls, there's one child who's at risk of FGM, right? Now that data varies, that goes to different places, and this is one of the reasons we don't have a real data when it comes to FGM as well, right? Because here in the UK, it's only last 3 years we're actually recording and collecting data. I'm so passionate sometimes what I'm saying. I forgot what I'm saying. Say the question again for me, miss.
So, ma'am, in every year, it has been seen that according to World Health Organization, that 3 out of 4 girl child are at the risk of undergoing FGM every year. To what extent FGM affects a child mental health?
Okay. So again, I'm going to take you back what I said earlier, right? Because I said to you that if you actually talk to 10 women or girls, like 5 girls and 5 women, every one of them will tell you the different effects that it had on them. So we can't really put one thing on and to say that. However, there are little, this is what happens. And I want you all to just imagine this and just imagine what really will happen to that child's mind. Imagine you have a beautiful life. You wake up every morning, you go to school, you come back, you play with your friends. You've been doing that since you were 6 years old. Then one day, nobody explains to you anything. You were taken away from your home for very, very early morning. You are taken to some place that you don't know, to people you don't know, which is the Qatar. And you do not have any local anesthetic. You don't have anything. So when you don't know what's happening to you, and secondly, there's nothing to numb the pain. And you end up at the age of 6 years old with this beautiful life that you had being held down to the ground, to the woman that you love, because it could be your mom, your grandmother, your aunties, holding your legs apart. And this is stranger is looking into your private part and cutting it without any help, without any medical help. I want you to imagine, what will that do to a child? What would that do to our child? So when we're talking about the different consequences, we need to take ourselves back into when the procedure happens. We need to take ourselves back to what happens to these girls and the people that they love. And then you were told the world is your oyster. You are a woman now. So you know what? Well done. After everything you've gone through, nobody explains to you. Can I just get a tissue, please, guys?
Sure,
One
ma'am. Sure, ma'am.
second.
Yes,
Sure,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Sure.
And yes, as you can tell, I get really, really emotional when it comes to that, because I always feel like all those girls that we're talking about are literally living inside me. Because if we are not the voice for these youth, if we're not the voice for these children to show them that the world is their oyster, their body belongs to them, and there's nothing they cannot do, is really sad. So it makes me sad when I talk about it. But there's something we can do. So those are just the little snapshot that I can give you when it comes to the psychological effects that it have. That when that happened to you and you were told, like, don't talk about your private part, and this is what happens to every girl, because I actually thought every single woman around the world have FGM. It's only when I came to the Western world I realized not everybody is like me. So it does that, and everybody's different how they take it and how strong they are. So yeah, we can't put in one thing, but it affects them in so many different ways. I think here as well in London, we have a lot of a young Somali girls who were cut, and after they arrived here, they were taken and they were cut, and now they're all suffering with like mental health problems. They have a deep depression. They deform and become bipolar, you know. So the oppression of girls, oppression of the future generation, it really scares me, that how we as a society can let that happen, because this is the future. All of you, these young people today who are in here, you are the future. You know, you are the future doctors, the prime ministers, the nurses, the midwives. You have the power to change what you have to change, but you need to be nourished in order for you to get there. You know, you need to have a role model, somebody who can guide you and say, you know what, when you believe in something, go for it, right? Just as long as you're not disrespecting anybody, go for it. We need that. And I feel like that you, the new generation, don't have a lot of support from the people that was before you. And that is one thing we need to change as well, because we're talking about FGM, but we're really talking about child abuse. Why do children wake up and not go to school? Why do we have children who are 10 years old who never set a foot on a school class? You know, they don't know how to write their name. Why do we have children at the age of 5 who are working in the market to support their families? They are children, right? So the world, if it's FGM or if it's child malnourishment, and we have children who are working who didn't even have a glass of water. We have children who are working 12-hour day and they don't have one piece of bread to eat. But they are living within a society that don't care about them. It's not right what is happening in the world. But I do think that we as the adults, the older generation, especially my generation, we need to speak up for you young ones, because you coming up and you need to own and you need to kick ass. Sorry my language, but it's about time to kick ass, and you will have our support. But we need to show you that your world is your oyster and we are here to support you. We're not here to put you down. We're here to support you regardless of what is it that you wanted to do in life. So if you see a child your age or younger than you being mistreated, you're gonna have to speak up for that child. If you don't know that if they don't have water, you got to make sure that you give them. So we're living in a world that really nobody cares unless we care ourselves.
So, ma'am, I would like to say this on behalf of everyone else. We're so inspired from you and your strength. And as you said, I think it's the responsibility of the youth in every community to bring about the necessary changes. So, ma'am, child rights is a major human rights issue which is violated during FGM. What can we do to prevent it?
You know, the same way as we have the Human Rights Act, right? We have a Child Rights Act. There is 54 articles of the child rights. And do you know that which one is the country that has not signed the rights of a child? Can anybody guess? There are 2 countries who have not signed the rights of a child. Can anybody guess? No? So, USA, United States of America, have not signed the rights of a child, because when they looked at the 54 articles, they said children should not have all these rights. And one of the reasons they didn't sign is that because they can send a child in life to prison, right? Who are under the age of 18. So they didn't sign that. The other country who did not sign it is Somalia, my country. One of the reasons Somalia didn't sign it, they said that it wasn't enough. They said the 54 articles are great, but we need more. So I want you right now, because I'm putting something in your head, I want you to think about this. One of the richest countries in the world do not support the rights of a child. But one of the countries, I'm not going to say my country's poor, because everybody loves their country, but my country had war. We had a lot of problems. It still looked and said, we love this, but we need more to give children the rights. So we know that in between as well, we have the rights of a child. But if you even went to school in the UK, has anybody used that? Any of your teachers, did they ask you that these are the rights that you have? No. So how come over that? How can we do it? Do you know what we're doing right now today? Is part of it. Do you know us being here right now? I don't know how many people are in this, but I know it's enough of us. This alone is a step to ending FGM. This alone of what we're doing today is a step to ending violence against women and girls. Because you know why? We are talking about it. We are talking about it and we are trying to come up with a solution. So imagine this, your talk, how you deal with how you speak about your community, how you speak for the rights of a child and human rights is what is going to end FGM and violence against women and girls. And we cannot put in one thing, but talk about it. Get together, say to each other, what is it we could do today, right? If you go into university or you're on your way to school, you might see something that upsets you as because it's happened to young people or children. Write it down. Make a debate in your university. Set up a debate in your school. If you're in secondary school, you guys are adults now. You are getting ready to go to university. You know what you need and what you want. This is the only way we can end this, by being together, not being scared of what we want to say, owning us in what we are saying, but never ever stop talking about it. Because the minute we stop talking about it, we go back right at the beginning.
Truly
So
said.
one of the things, us being here today, is a start as well.
Now, we totally believe that people should stand their voice and raise their voice. And some people are still hesitant and reluctant to talk about FGM and other sexual child abuse because of their orthodox mindset. How do you think we can change their mindset, and can you suggest some suggestions for these people?
Oh, I love you so much with your questions. It's amazing. I was going to say the wrong thing, but say it again so I can get the right one before being rude. Say that again for me, my dear.
Sure, ma'am. Some people are very hesitant and reluctant to talk about FGM and other sexual child abuse because of their orthodox mindset. How can we change their mindset, and can you give us some suggestion or advice to these people?
Okay, so one of the things I'm going to start about is that I always talk about neighborhood, right? Because I was born in Somalia. Like, we always talk about look after your neighbors, see if they, are they okay? Now, when this, with the mindset that they came with, regardless of what it is, like the atheist or religion or everything, is ignorance never opens anybody's eyes, right? So when you believe in something, if you are religion or non-religion, is that think about your neighbor. Imagine if your neighbor today didn't have food to eat, they didn't have water, but you have everything. If you do not knock their door, if you do not ask how they are, you will never know, do you?
Yes, ma'am.
And you will waste all of that food and all of that stuff you had in your home, because now it's gone off and you're going to put it in the bin. So we need to, as a human being, come together first of all and start talking about our community and the things that we can do better for ourselves. However, there always going to be a people who's going to sit against it and say, no, don't do this and don't do that. I say to each and one of you, take the beauty out of what you're doing. If it's working and it's beautiful, take it. If it's not working and it's harmful to your community, to yourself, and to the young people that you are talking about, you should stand aside and say, I don't want to be part of this. We have to stand our ground in order to speak to those people who think there's nothing wrong with the world. Everything is blessed and everything is beautiful. Child abuse is real. FGM is real. There are over 200 million women and girls who are living with the consequences of FGM. A child, a baby girl, is being cut somewhere in the world every 11 seconds. We're not making this up. This is what it is. So for those people who are saying it doesn't happen, child abuse doesn't happen, and it doesn't involve us, we need to be stronger. For us who believe what is happening in our community, and we are going to be strong enough to stand up to you, not you guys, but to the ones who are, saying it doesn't happen here, it's not things. No, our voice have to be louder. Our voices have to be louder for what we believe in. So for me, is what I would say, two words I would say to them is, one, shame on you, and shame on you for even believing it's okay for children to be abused regardless of where you come from and what you believe and what your color is. Shame on you. And second thing I'm going to say to us and to you all as the youth, you're going to change this. If you stand up for what you believe, you follow your passion and your dream, no one can stop you, regardless how big and powerful they are. And that is the only way we can change this. Sorry, I talk so much.
Absolutely, ma'am. So, ma'am, can you share with us something that has inspired you to bring light to this practice?
I was always inspired by my mom and my grandmother. And it's really nice to see the strong women within our family. At first, I always thought, I never felt like why did my mom call me? Why did she let me to have FGM? Because she was a survivor herself. My grandmother was a survivor of FGM. All the women before me was that, but they did what they did because they believed it was going to make us a better woman and strong woman and stuff. So I always been inspired by my especially the women that before me in my family, and but I was always inspired by the young youth, the young people. I have over 15 nieces. None of them has gone through FGM. Me and my younger sister are the last in our family to actually stop the FGM. So I get inspired by them every single day. I get inspired by them by listening and wanted to learn as well. But I get inspired by all of you. I get inspired by the youth and by looking at you guys for what you're doing, how powerful you are, know what you want, and not settling for less is what I've been inspired about. And I'm believing in what what you are passionate about, because I was really passionate when I was told that I can't have children. I was like, no way, this is going to happen to anybody else that I know. So that is when I decided. So just we're passionate about what we are around and the power we get from the people that we are around. So surround yourselves with positive people. You don't have to sit it through a conversation that you know is not going nowhere. That way you try, like you have to prove yourself to somebody else. Walk away. Walk away. And even though I'm 42, going 43, I get inspired from each and one of you every day, because the youth that is today are in force. Like you guys have no idea how the power we get from you all. So for me, is that I get empowered by you, and I hope you get empowered by me and the other women like me. But please stand up for what you believe and keep doing what you're doing, because you're doing an amazing work. Even putting this webinar together, bringing all of us together is on Sunday. It's amazing, So get inspired by you, and hopefully you can get inspired by the people around you too.
Sure, ma'am. Ma'am, lastly, with FGM being a global concern today, how can all of us work together of ending FGM?
And by talking, by educating yourself about FGM, first of all, because if you really do not know about FGM, you will not find the words to say. And I know this because last 10 years, by teaching, by training doctors and midwives and professional like professors and, a big organizations, I realized that they really didn't know a lot, right? So we need to educate ourselves and get to know what is it that you're talking about. And the world is your oyster. Nobody can stop you.
Thank you, ma'am, for such an enlightening webinar. The floor is open for all the viewers and attendees. Do you have any questions from Hoda Ali, ma'am?
Guys, any questions?
Hello. Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question. That how many countries have lost to ban FGM?
How many countries?
Yeah, and which are they? Which are those?
And okay, so there's not a lot of countries that banned in FGM. However, in Africa, there's already in 23 countries that already practicing FGM. However, they did say they changed the law, but it's not enough to stop girls being cut. And in Western world, we do know that a lot of in the European countries has banned, like the UK and France and Belgium and stuff like that. But it's just Europe. And America, they have different states. So the way they work, I think, is a state pass. So they say in part that they will ban FGM, but then the other. So we don't really, I don't think there's more than about 10 countries that actually banned. But when they say banned, it's just on paper. The work is not there.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Hello.
Even
Hi.
Hello, I have a question.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a question that do people have any justification to support this practice? Like, uh, any justification that these people give for carrying on this practice?
They still using religion. That's the crazy thing. They still using religion to say that it's because of religion practice that is justified. But now we have our religion leaders who are supporting us, who are actually translating, if it's the Bible, if it's the Quran, if it's the Torah, to actually talk about and said, no, there is no justification for that. But yes, some countries do use religion for justification.
Any more questions?
Thank you, ma'am.
Even I had a question. So
Yeah.
basically, there are many common people who are facing this problem. So what measures can be taken to avoid this problem or eliminate this problem from the society?
I think the main thing that really to use is that for me, what worked for me was the medical communications. So right now I work in schools. I lead 18 primary schools in Ealing and all of that area. But one of the community that we find out that practice is the Bohora community from India. Like no one know about that. And again, it is just like Somalia, they do it for religious reasons and stuff. So the main thing is really to use the consequences, the medical problems, and I actually talk about, like, if I sit with an older person, I'll give you an example, right? So if somebody like wants to for FGM and I'm there and I said, okay, I understand because this is something that is happening, but do you know the consequences of it? And they were like, no, what is that? And I'm like, okay, so I couldn't have my period when I was the 11 years old. By the time I was 31, I was told I can't have my own child. Now that has denied me to be a mother. It denied me to even experience what it's like to have a child. And then it denied my parents and my great-grandparents to have grandchild, right? And I would say to them, is that right? Is that you think that you're doing something good for me, but this is the consequences that come with it. So each and one of us need to really look at the consequences, see the community that you're working with, what is the effect is, because a lot of the women will have the gynecological problem, but then we need to talk about the psychological problem. So basically it's really looking at that and using that. The days that we can just say FGM is wrong, you can't do that, it's not working. We need to use the evidence of what the effects are right now. So if it means the medical problems like me that, I can't be a mom.
Yeah.
They denied me that. So use those things that will make the community, especially the older one, to really listen to. And I encourage all of you to watch the Maasai cricket warriors. They from Kenya. They did a movie about 4 years ago. I remember when they came to London, I support them and stuff. But that was from the Maasai community, and the boys actually got together and said, you know what, this is not right. The girls are getting hurt. This is not right. But we don't want. So what they did is they make a movie about it because they love cricket. They got all the British famous retired cricketers, take them to Kenya. They put cricket in week together, and then people came, right, from all different in villages. And then when they came, they said, we want to talk about FGM. And if you watch that movie, you could see the oldest, like this, and like 80-year-old granddad who said, you young people, we did all of this for you, but if you don't want this, then we will stop it. Because the main character who was actually talking about FGM said, I don't want to marry a girl who had FGM. So the fact that they said that, we had 50% reduction in that part of Kenya, because the boys came out and said, I don't want to marry a woman who's been caught. I don't want it. And then the oldest, they said, why are we doing it? So it was all about that. It's all on YouTube. You can check it out. But it's really, those are the ways to do it. We're not doing it aggressively. We're not doing it to disrespect our community, because we know how our culture and our family are important to us. But take the educational side. Read yourself, educate yourself, and then use that to get to them and to say, listen, this is the proof. If they say to you, like, no, because that's what happened to my community. They were like, no, we all had children, it's fine. But I'm like, but I'm not. You know, I'm that person. So it's using that education without being rude to actually wake them up, because they need to be waken up. They are in this stone age. And no disrespect, but I feel like all the ones are in this stone age. So yes, use education and use a real life experiences.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for such an enlightening webinar, and thank you to all the attendees for being such an amazing audience.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for inspiring us today. And we really hope to hear from you again sometime. And thank you to the all participants for being so patient with us.